Hello, America. This is Wayne again. And today I want to do a little bit of a study. And I've mentioned some of these truths in the past, but I want to go over some things, reiterate some things to make it more clear of what we're teaching. God, in the Old Testament, we are in a different dispensation now than in the Old Testament. The Old Testament was in the dispensation of law. We're under the dispensation of grace, the church age. So God operates in a more spiritual way than in the Old Testament. He operated in a more natural way. And we're going to explain that here in a little bit in detail. Understand that these people in the Old Testament, they were not born again. They were still spiritually dead. They did not have the authority and the power and authority over the powers of darkness. I would suppose that in many circles they may not even have any insight or really aware of the powers of darkness as we are today. Another aspect of this that we need to understand is that Satan's power was not stripped as it is today. Jesus stripped Satan of his power, made a public spectacle of him, triumphing over him through the cross. So that has not occurred, obviously, in the Old Covenant. So Satan still had some of his angelic power where he could control men's hearts and minds in a greater degree. But his power has been stripped. Now, we have the same power over him that Adam had before he sinned. So, that's very important that we have to understand that. So God got involved in a more natural way in the Old Testament. It was more of a physical type battle. He would confuse the enemy. He would cause, David's super soldiers where they would just stand up and kill hundreds of people, one person in a day. He would cause the enemy to kill themselves. He would reveal to the prophets their plans before they happen, and the Israelites to be ready for them. So it was more of a physical battle, and they used swords and spears and the natural warfare back then. Now, thus the term, and the battle is the Lord's, because the Lord would cause the battle to be won in a natural realm. So they said the battle is the Lord's. Well, in the New Testament, we shouldn't say the battle is the Lord's. We should say the victory is the Lord. The victory has been provided for us by the Lord through his death, burial, and resurrection, and we walk in that victory. The victory has been provided for us, but yet there is a spiritual battle now that we have to maintain so we can walk in the victory, the abundant life that Jesus has provided for us. So we now have a power and authority over the powers of darkness, over Satan himself, because Jesus has stripped him of his power. He has his two strengths now. He's invisible. We can't see him with our natural eyes. And he's a master deceiver. Understand these people that he uses, they're deceived, they're slaves. They're slaves to sin. That's what Paul talks about in his letter to the Romans. But we have authority because Christ, we have been delivered from the power of darkness, have been translated into the kingdom of his dear Son, whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. So we are seated with him at the right hand of the Father. Amen. A place of authority. So, our victory is assured if we stand our ground. Paul says there in the 6th chapter of Ephesians, when we've done everything we do, we stand fully armed. We stand. There's no talk about retreating or compromise. We stand. Satan has to retreat. We don't have to retreat if we stand in the fullness of God, in the fullness of his Spirit. standing on His Word. And we can walk in the abundant life. It's the fight. It's a good fight of faith. It's a fight of faith now. See, it's not a natural realm fight. It's a spiritual fight. And we have been given spiritual weapons. The Israelites had natural weapons. We have spiritual weapons because it's a spiritual fight. For though we walk in 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 5, though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not natural or not carnal. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish strongholds, or high things, the King James says, that set itself against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedience to Christ. So we know in our hearts and our minds that Satan has been placed under our feet, and knowing that, we stand our ground and declare our victory, and he has to flee, not us. God spoke to my heart a few years back. He said if we gain victory in the spirit realm, that victory we gain in the spirit realm will manifest in the natural realm. We have to understand there's the demonic between the evil people. The evil people are just pawns. They're not our enemy. Paul says our enemy is not flesh and blood, but it's the powers of darkness. It's the demonic. And when we understand that, victory will become. We will see victory at a more abundant, more abundance, and a more abundance. In Jesus' name, we'll be back and we'll continue this here next time.